So in the previous video, if you haven't caught it yet, I spoke about 8 key strategies that I think are relatively easy but also lucrative to follow for budding property investors, or even property investors that have been doing it for a while, have done the Buytolet, have done the HMOs. But then I talk about the other 6 strategies that you can then move up to then scale your wealth by doing more of the higher value development. And so I spoke about vanilla Buytolet, HMOs, title splitting, which is one of the main lucrative part that I've found in the last 5 years, where you're buying blocks of flats and converting them and releasing quite a large amount of value. But more importantly, you keep the passive income. So in my position, in my situation rather, I should say, I don't sell, so I keep all of those leaseholds under my own group structure, and I rent them for passive income. Yes, I forego some of the kind of large payouts if you were to sell them, but in terms of perennial income, these income will keep on going for 20-30 years. So I don't take the payout on day one, but I will take it over 20 years. Then I talked about commercial conversion, buy and flip by adding simple values like side extension and loft extensions. Spoke about rent-to-rent, service accommodation, and buying land with seeking planning permission and building. So those were the kind of 8 strategies that I talked about. In this video, I'm really going to focus on some of the tactics that I follow, and I would advise people who are getting into it or looking at different ways of how they conduct their business in property investment should look into. So first one, in terms of tactics basically is how you do it. Strategy is what you do. So I've spoken about the 8 strategies of what to do. Now I'm going to talk about how you do them and how I do them. So first one is, buying assets that are undervalued, so below market value. So really, if something is worth 100,000, you really need to be picking it up about 70,000, 75,000, so that then you can add, say, 5,000 to 7,000 pound worth of value to it, and it's worth then 110,000. So you have to make sure that you're buying below market value. I cannot stress this high enough. You've got to make money on the way in. There is plenty of deals out there. If you haven't found them, you're not you're not searching wide enough. But also, more importantly, you should not be buying just because you're ready and there's a deal that's come up this week that you need to buy. You have to stop yourself from doing that. You've got to find the right true below market value, and it has to be significantly below the market value, so that when you add some money of your own to develop that value, you are generating decent profit to it. So many times I'm coaching people and people say, oh, I've been offered and I've been accepted to buy this house, and I'm really delighted. And in one scenario, I evaluated somebody's potential purchase, and he was almost paying £40,000 more what the market in that area demanded, and he was then so pleased with himself because he's tried for 8 months looking for a place, and he's been accepted to buy this by the estate agent. You can understand what the challenge is here. He was quickly advised not to do that. So buy below market value, and then the idea is, you buy, refurb, recycle your cash, remortgage, and then you rent. So that's kind of the key 5 elements: buy, refurb, recycle, remortgage, and rent. So BRRRR. So everybody loves a good acronym. So that's the first thing: buy below market value and do these steps. There's another tactic that I employ quite a lot, which is exchange with delayed completion. So this is where I would buy currently. It's December 2020. I'm buying 2 places as we speak right now. Below market value, but also in very bad conditions. One of them has got no kitchen, no bathroom, so it has to be bought cash. The other one has been inhabited for 45 years and not been renovated. I think the electrics are 50 years old, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. In both scenarios, I've agreed a below market value price. One of them was off the market and direct to vendor. One of them is within the estate agent, so it can be done with the estate agent as well, as long as they understand what that is. And the idea is, in these 2 scenarios, I've put in 10% deposit, so I exchange with the sellers, solicitors, so they know that I won't pull out, they won't pull out either. I've got the guarantee. Then I ask for, in both scenarios, one for 4 weeks key undertaking, and another one 6 weeks key undertaking. The idea that I can go in and actually over this period renovate the house for 4 or 6 weeks, and make sure that that house is ready for when my surveyor comes out and actually values that block of flats in one scenario, or in the other scenario, in this case, a 3-bedroom house, to the value that I think it is. So the tactic here is exchange with delayed completion. It's not rocket science, but you need a solicitor who understands it. You need a surveyor who understands the estate agent who understands it, because they need to sell it to the sellers, and then you need to be able to also be very clear about how you sell it to the estate agents as well. So, but it's a very good tactic, so I don't tie up all my cash into 1 or 2 projects, but I can actually use the same cash in lumps of deposits, I guess, in exchanges, and then I can get those houses done up and actually improve, so I'm not wasting time waiting for either using bridging finance to be able to buy those houses given the condition, because I was not going to be able to get a mortgage, or I'm not also wasting time, so by the time I complete, the house is ready. It's been renovated, it's been all the works have been done, and I can actually either in these 2 scenarios, one of them would be HMO, so straight away start renting it and applying for the license for HMO, and second one is going to be a block of flats, so I'm going to start title splitting those 3 blocks of flats as well. So exchange with delayed completion is a very good little tactic to employ. The next one is buying with lease options. This is something that it takes a bit more thinking about, and finding the right kind of sellers who are, quite frankly, a little bit desperate to be able to sell their properties, and they will then agree for you to take in on a lease, so the lease options, basically you write a contract to say, today I'm going to buy your house at £200,000 in, but I take a lease option on it for 5 years, and in between those 5 years I'm going to rent it, and maybe do a rent-to-rent or a service accommodation with it, pay you X amount of rent on it, so you can keep on paying your mortgage, but after 5 years I have the option to either buy the house or give you the house back, but you keep obviously the money that I've paid you. What's in it for them? So they are potentially they've got a buyer who is guaranteed going to buy it, or they hope would buy it. They are also getting a passive income from that buyer. What's in it for you guys? For us, we get an option then in 5 years time to see whether that house has appreciated quite a lot. So if it's gone up to say 275,000, you still buy that 200,000, which is the agreed price. You can then sell it the next day and make a £75,000 cleared before tax profit. So there are some kind of gains to it, but like I said, it takes a bit of a effort to seek out these sellers. It usually works in markets where the market is not that buoyant. So London and South East of England, I find them much harder to find, because people can, quite frankly, put it in an open market, things will sell. Put it in the auction, things will sell. So if you live in an area where the market is less buoyant, then this is a potential that you might be looking to exploit as well. So lease options are not bad in those kind of quieter areas. The other one is looking for distressed properties, as the title suggests, looking for things that are harder to for sellers to find it harder to sell. So things like where they've been vandalized by ex-tenants, the kitchen, the bathroom's been ripped. I bought a house in the summer of 2020. Basically, the tenants left very angrily and disconnected the pipes and then flooded the house. So they went onto auctions because the house was completely needing renovation. So distressed property is a great way of finding below market value, because I paid the house almost 60% of the value of what's worth, and I've conducted the work. So there is a lot of margins to be had with buying distressed property, as long as you know why they're distressed. They're not things like subsidence where the walls are bowing, or the bays are dropping because there's movement in the clay under the houses and stuff like that. So again, these are things that you can perfectly try to fix, but as developers, we need to try and get in and out as quickly as possible, so spend as least amount as possible on developing projects, because then you can do more projects per year. And the last one is something called, basically it's a tactic around financing. It's called vendor finance. Once again, I don't really engage it myself. I tend to do my own funding. But here it's vendor finance, where once again in London, southeast of England, I find it's a bit harder to find sellers who can't shift their properties as easily as they would like to. So that's why vendor finance don't tend to work. But sometimes in other scenarios where there are big blocks of flats, vendor finance may work, where the vendor's trying to sell, let's say, £2.5 million worth of block, 23 flats. They can agree for them to fund your purchase once you've done the works and the revaluation is carried out. So there's a margin between you carrying out the work and their 2.5 million becoming 3 million. Then that 500,000 is used as your deposit. So then you pay the seller the 2.5 million, you use that 500,000 as your deposit to then buy the block. So it's a concept that basically works quite well if you can find the right educated vendor that understands what you're trying to do and don't feel like you're trying to do something anything dodgy or anything like that. So it's a bit more complex, but vendor finance tend to work in some cases. So in summary, I guess, in those 2 videos I've posted was the 8 strategies I prescribed for 2021 that I will also be following myself. This about 6 different tactics that I've talked about that you can actually engage in 2021 to make your property journey a bit easier, but also more importantly, increase the velocity of the cash that you have, which is basically using the same cash and doing more projects with them. So in summary, I guess there are a few things that I'd like to suggest that people do is be planned and focused. So nothing starts until you've kind of thought about it, written your plan, understand why you're doing it and how you're going to do it, and then stick into it. So being the focus part, because otherwise you start dancing too many tunes. So be planned, be focused, pick your strategies and the tactics you're going to employ, and then go out and do them. A lot of people that I coach come to me because they've been to all these £20,000 worth of training programs and yet have not bought a house because nobody's kind of really pushed them or held their hands and guided them through the process of how to get going. And this is what I think people need to be able to do. So pick a coach, find somebody who already does it. Speak to people who in your network who are already getting on. Drop me an email, drop me a text, or visit my website and stuff, and have a look at some of the content that I put in. You've got to take the action. Knowledge is nothing. You've got to put the action in place so for you to get to be successful. So be planned, be focused, keep your strategy in head and the tactics you're going to follow. Second is buy low. Make your money on the way in. Do not expect to make money only on the way out, because loads of things can happen. You can have another crisis of COVID. You could have a banking crisis. You can have finance crisis. You can have, we will have unemployment shooting up to 2 million in 2021. So waiting for the market to boom for you to make money because you've overpaid at the start is not a good strategy. So make sure you always buy low, buy below market value, seek those opportunities out, and that's how you'll make money. Add value. So the third one is always look to add value. Buying a house that somebody else has done and paying market value is not a way of being consistently successful as a property developer and making significant amount of money. You need to buy low, you need to do the works, and you need to increase that value significantly for you then to be able to either pay yourself by selling it or recycling your money out by refinancing and leaving that new value as part of your deposit, which is what I do. Recycle your cash. Clearly, at some point, we all run out of cash. So if you've got lumps of £50,000 for deposit, after 2, 10, 20, you will run out of those £50,000 if you keep leaving them behind. The idea that I teach is around finding the right house, paying, getting below market value, adding the right value enough so that you can then increase the value so that you can use that new value to be as your deposit. So you then eke out all your deposit money that you used to buy the house to begin with for the next house. So you completely recycle all your cash out of each deal. Next one is increase the velocity at which you use your cash. So if, let's say, you've got a pot of £200,000, really you have a few choices. You can buy one house or one project and do it to death for a year, or you could split it 4 ways or even 6 ways and use that to buy 6 different properties and you are using that money and you increase the velocity at which you turn that money to make more money much quicker and at a higher rate. So definitely increase your velocity of the use of your cash. That's critical for me and my business. I'm always looking to move that money on to the next project, maybe within 2 or 3 months. Every 2 or 3 months, that 100 grand, 200 grand is buy the next house. And the last but not no means least, you really need to be organized. Project management skills. A project manager, don't go on courses, but read a project management course which says basically a project has a start, a beginning, a middle, and an end. The same thing you will do with a house. You've got a start, you bought the house, you found it, you bought it, then you've got to do the work, which is the middle bit, and then you've got to either refinance it after you've added the value, or sell it, which is the end bit. So, but be very planned and develop your project management skills in doing that, because that's the way you are going to be successful in 2021. But other than that, thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more content with you over 2021, and I wish you all a very big success. So I'll catch you in the next video.